The 2022 World Cup is happening really soon, so it's only right I make my predictions for the entirety of the competition. And trust me, this prediction video will have a lot of upsets. Why? Because I am bold like that. Anyways, let's start off these predictions with Group A, which consists of Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and the Netherlands. Let's start off with the host nation of Qatar. Now, Qatar are the most recent Asian Cup champions, winning it in 2019, and last summer they were a semi-finalist in the Gold Cup, which is pretty impressive. They've got some underrated players that can ball out this tournament as well, like Al-Haidos, Al-Moz Ali, who is their star striker, and Akram Afif. Also, one good thing going for Qatar is that host nations tend to overperform at the World Cup. For example, Russia went all the way to the quarterfinals in 2018, Brazil went all the way to the semifinals in 2014, and even South Korea went to the semifinals in 2002. Only South Africa failed to progress from the group stages in the 2010 World Cup. So it's looking good for Qatar, not gonna lie. Now moving on to Ecuador, they have one of the youngest squads in the entire tournament, and they have great players like Henkapi from Bayer Leverkusen, Plata from Valladolid, and of course Moises Caicedo from Brighton. Ecuador have a good generation coming up, but is this World Cup a little too soon for them? Only time will tell, but for now, let's move on to the next team in Senegal. Now Senegal are also having their own golden generation and are coming to the World Cup as AFCON champions. They have world-class players on the squad like Edouard Mendy, their goalkeeper, Koulibaly, their center back, and of course Sadio Mane in the attack, who is also my favorite Senegalese player. No African team has made it to the semifinals of a World Cup, but if one African country were to do it this time, it would be Senegal. Now moving on to the Netherlands, they're coming into this World Cup as one of the favorites. Rightfully so though, because they recently topped their tough Nations League group consisting of Belgium, Poland, and Wales, and even beat Belgium 1-0 on the last match day to make sure they top the group. Additionally, their squad is very talented on paper with the likes of Virgil van Dijk, Memphis Depay, Frenkie de Jong, Bergwijn, Gakpo, etc. One bad thing about this though is they did lose Wijnaldum to a serious injury, but bruh, their team is still stacked. So who do I think is going through in this group? Well, I actually have Ecuador finishing in last place. Listen, I think Ecuador are going to be a very good national team when the 2026 World comes around, but right now I think it's just too soon for them. Moving on, I got Qatar in third place. Not gonna lie, if Qatar wasn't the host nation, I definitely would have put Ecuador in third place, but we all know that host nations overperform in the World Cup, so I think Qatar will get the better of Ecuador in their game. Now for second place, I actually have Senegal in that spot. Now if Edouard Mendy was consistently playing in the goalkeeper position for Chelsea, I might have said something different, but the fact that Netherlands are in form right now makes me think that they will top the group instead of Senegal. It's just what I think. Let's move on to Group B, which consists of England, Iran, USA, and Wales. Now to start off with England, they're in terrible form heading into the World Cup. They placed bottom in their tough Nations League group, getting a grand total of 0 wins. Additionally, in their most recent 3 games, England got battered by Hungary 4-0, and that country isn't even in the World Cup. Then they went on to lose to Italy 1-0, who are also not in the World Cup as well. And then they had a remarkable 3-3 draw against Germany, which is kind of decent, I guess. However, along with the terrible form that England are in right now, they also have a lot of crucial injuries to important players. They're losing their starting right back Reece James, and their other starting right back Kyle Walker is still a huge doubt. They probably lost Ben Chilwell as well, who recently might have popped his hamstring, and John Stones is still a pretty big doubt for the World Cup, along with Calvin Phillips, who is gonna definitely miss the World Cup, and he was a key performer for them in the Euros. So losing him is definitely tough. Oh yeah, and England's manager is Gareth Southgate, so it's not looking too good for England. Now going to Iran, they're probably the most informed national team in this group. Iran recently fired the coach that got them to the World Cup and hired their old national team coach Carlos Queiroz, the man who led Iran to the successful 2018 World Cup campaign, where they ended up beating Morocco 1-0 and drew to Portugal 1-1. Iran also topped their group in Asian qualifiers, gaining 25 points, which is the most points that any national team got in Asian qualification. Now also in the September transfer window, Iran did very well. They beat a pretty strong Uruguayan side 1-0 and then ended up drawing to the African champions Senegal 1-1. Those are some really promising results for Iran. Also, the fact that their star striker Taremi is in red hot form for Porto right now really helps them out, because this group has a lot of weak defenses, trust me. Now let's go on to my country, the United States of America, where we were pretty poor in our last few games. We lost to Japan 2-0, and don't get me wrong, Japan's a good national team, but you shouldn't be getting dominated by them. And then we drew to Saudi Arabia 0-0 in a very boring and dull game. Yes, I know the United States were missing key players like Chris Richards, Yunus Musa, and Timothy Weah, but still, missing players does not excuse these terrible performances. However, I am confident in the USA's talent that they can pull off some upsets here and there. The only problem is Berhalter, because you never know, man. He might be starting Aaron Long, and then we'd be screwed. Now let's move on to Wales, who are finally back in the World Cup after a long time. Wales are not in good form though heading into the World Cup, with them losing their most recent 3 games. Additionally, although Gareth Bale is supposed to be fit for the World Cup, he has not been playing for LAFC recently because of injury. I know Bale always comes through for Wales, but seeing him sidelined due to injuries might hurt his form heading into the tournament. So now, who do I think is is going to end up in the round 16 from this group? Well, I think Wales is going to finish at the bottom. I don't rate this national team too highly, and it's going to be their first World Cup in a long time, so just being here is already a huge accomplishment. Also, the fact that Bale has been sidelined with injury is something you don't want to hear right before the World Cup. Now in third place, I got my country, the United States. Now I was hopeful that we would be able to get out of this group. However, with our recent performances and the fact that Greg Berhalter always picks his terrible favorites like Aaron Long to start games for us, I don't know whether qualifying from the group is possible or not anymore. However, I still think we're going to play well against England, and I think we're going to get at least a draw against them. I'd do anything not to lose to England. Now in second place, I got a little bit of an upset. I actually have England finishing second place in the group. I know, how can I say this? Well, England have a lot of problems right now. Like I said earlier, they're in terrible form. Their manager is Gareth Southgate. He's probably going to be starting Harry Maguire, which is terrible for England's defense. And they have a lot of injuries right now to some of their crucial players, like I mentioned earlier. So with all these problems, I think England finishing second in this group is pretty reasonable. Now, as a surprise to some people, I got Iran topping this group. Out of these four, they're the most informed national team right now, and with them hiring Carlos Queiroz back, I think it was a smart move for them. Iran plays very well as a team, and with top talents on Iran like Asmoon and Taremi, I think they can get the job done and finish first place. Now let's move on to Group C, where we have Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. Let's start off with Argentina, who are one of the favorites to win the entire competition. And I mean, rightfully so. After all, Argentina are the recent Copa America winners after beating Brazil in the final, and are also the Finalissima winners after beating Italy in that game as well. Messi is also in top form this season, balling out for PSG and getting a ton of goals and assists. Argentina do have some scares though, with the likes of Dybala potentially missing the World Cup, and also Lo Celso might miss it as well. And those are two huge losses for Argentina. But I'm more than confident that Argentina can still play very well without these two key players. Alright, next up we got Saudi Arabia. There's not really much known about this team because all the players play in the Saudi Arabian league and nobody outside Saudi Arabia is watching this league respectfully. But they are a pretty decent national team though, because they topped the Asian qualifier World Cup group they were in, getting above Japan by 1 point. However, their recent form has not been that good because they lost to the likes of Colombia and Venezuela, and they also drew to Ecuador and USA, which is pretty good I guess. But even with this, I think in this group, Saudi Arabia is going to be out of their depth. Next up we got Mexico, and oh boy, they got a lot of problems. Raul Jimenez and Tecatito are doubts and being 100% fit for the World Cup, which sucks for El Tri for sure. Mexico have not been playing well recently either, with them losing to the likes of Colombia and Paraguay, and they also drew to Jamaica. Also, their coach Tata Martino has been making some terrible decisions lately. Apparently, he does not want to start Santi Jimenez, the finer striker who is in form, and wants to have Funes Mori up top instead. Like bruh, Tata, what are you doing? The thing about Mexico though is they always find a way to make it to the round of 16. Yes, they always fail when they get to that match, but still, they always find a way to make it there. Anyways, let's move on to Poland, where they just hired a new manager, and this manager seems to be pretty decent. Additionally, they have one of the best strikers in the world, Robert Lewandowski, who is in great form for Barcelona this season. The problem with Poland is they always fail when it comes to delivering in international tournaments recently. In the Euros, they're bottom in the group, and even in the World Cup in 2018, they finished bottom as well. The recent international tournament history has not been that good at all, and I don't see how this is going to change for the 2022 World Cup. Anyways, going on to the placements, I think Saudi Arabia is going to finish last place in the group. Although I do think Saudi Arabia is underrated, I still think they're out of their depth, and I don't think they're going to do much of this World Cup. Then in third place, we got Poland, and like I said earlier, their international tournament history has not been that good, so there's no way I can say they're going to the round 16. Whenever I watched Poland, it always felt like their game plan was to give service to Lewandowski. But if you shut down their service, it felt like Poland never had a plan B. And because of that, I think they're going to suffer in the World Cup as well. Then in second place, we got Mexico. Now Mexico is nowhere near the levels like they were in previous World Cups, but they always make it to the round 16, so I have to give them second place. And on top, we got Argentina indisputably. They're one of the best national teams right now, and they're also 35 games unbeaten currently. And I don't even think this is going to change in the group stage. I think they're getting 9 points. Let's move on to Group D, where we got France, Australia, Denmark, and Tunisia. Let's start off with France, who are coming into the Qatar World Cup as the World Cup champions. Despite France being a stacked national team, in recent games they have been very disappointing. In the Nations League, they finished third place with only 1 win, and they were only 1 point from being relegated to League B. Additionally, in the Euros last year, they went out in the round 16 after losing in penalties to Switzerland. I'm sure we all remember that game. It was crazy. Also, it's important to note that France have been dealing with a lot of injuries to some of their important players. For example, Paul Pogba and N'Golo Kante are both going to be missing the World Cup this year. These two were crucial players in winning the World Cup in 2018, and now they can't even help their country go back to back. But honestly, despite that, France winning the World Cup this year is pretty unlikely because of the Champions Curse. If you're unfamiliar with the Champions Curse, is basically the World Cup winners will disappoint in the following World Cup. And there's plenty of examples we can look at. Italy won the World Cup in 2006 and then failed to progress from the group stages in 2010. Spain won the 2010 World Cup but failed to progress from the group stages in the 2014 World Cup. Then Germany won the 2014 World Cup but then failed to progress from the group stages in 2018. This curse definitely seems real, so who says it's not going to affect France this time? Before we get to that though, let's talk about the other teams. Let's talk about Australia first, who beat the UAE in the Interconfederation playoffs and then beat Peru in the game to go to the World Cup. And honestly, it was just a great performance by Australia's substitute goalkeeper, Redmayne, who did silly dance moves during the penalty shootout. Overall though, I don't think Australia are that good of a national team. It also seems like their most talented player, hrvizak, might not participate in the tournament due to injury as well. So it's not really looking good for Australia. Now on to Denmark, and for me, they're one of the biggest dark horses in the World Cup this year. As we all know, they're the semi-finalists in Euro 2020 and were underdogs throughout the entire tournament. And honestly, if it wasn't for that soft penalty call for England against Denmark, I think Denmark could have easily progressed to the final against Italy. Anyways, Denmark did good in the Nations League as well recently. Although they finished behind Croatia in the Nations League group, they still had a very strong performance and even beat France twice in the Nations League itself. Denmark are just too underrated, bro. Keep an eye on them at this World Cup. Now for Tunisia, I'll hold my hands up high, bro. I don't really know much about them. They did get spanked by Brazil in a friendly 5-1, but bruh, that's Brazil. What did you expect? However, they did beat a very good Japan side in the Kirin Cup, which is a friendly international competition held in Japan, 3-0, so Tunisia definitely have quality in the team. So, who's gonna go through in this group? Well, last place for me definitely has to be Australia. I don't really rate them that highly, and the fact that their most talented player, hrvizak, might miss the World Cup is not a good sign for them. Now for third place, I got a huge upset. That's right, another big call from me because I am a bold man. I got France finishing in third. Now listen, I know how weird it looks to see France go out of the World Cup in this super easy group, but bruh, how can I refute the champion's curse? It literally happened to the past 3 World Cup champions, so who says it's not gonna happen to France this time? Plus, France are dealing with a lot of injuries right now and they're in poor form, so them finishing third, I can kind of see it. Now for second place, I'm gonna put Tunisia because Australia are definitely not getting out of this group, so I have to put Tunisia. Then in first place, we got Denmark. Denmark, like I said previously, I think they're super underrated and they even beat France twice in the Nations League like I said earlier. They're a competent team that knows how to play great football, simple as that. Moving on to Group E, we got Spain, Costa Rica, Germany, and Japan. Now for Spain, despite losing one of their most recent games to Switzerland, they still managed to top their very tough Nations League group due to a clutch goal by Alvaro Morata. Now for me, I think Spain has some exceptional players, like Rodri, Pedri, Javi, Thiago, Ansu Fati, etc. However, I feel like they're still missing a star striker in that team, and no, Alvaro Morata is not a star striker, respectfully. Still though, Spain have a very stacked team with a lot of talented players, so they do have the quality to go pretty far in this tournament. Like going on to Costa Rica, they almost failed to make it to the World Cup. They were struggling in the first few games of CONCACAF qualification, but they picked it back up and they ended up finishing 4th place in the standings. And this meant they had to go to the Interconfederation playoff against New Zealand, where they won that game 1-0 and made it to the World Cup. Now for me, Costa Rica isn't the same as they once were, and all their good players are turning old now, like Navas, Brian Ruiz, Campbell, etc. And their new generation just isn't that good either. However, doubting Costa Rica could be a very big mistake. We all saw what they did in the 2014 World Cup, topping a group which had England, Uruguay, and Italy in it. Costa Rica are not afraid of doing the impossible, and they might do it again this year. Now for Germany, they've been pretty underwhelming recently. Even though they hired Hansi Flick, who won everything at Bayern Munich, they still haven't been living up to the expectations. I mean, bruh, they got 3rd place in the Nations League group, and I know the group is tough, but they finished behind Hungary, bro. Come on, Germany, you're better than this. Additionally, they have 1 win out of their last 7 games, which is terrible form heading into the World Cup. Germany is also going to be missing a lot of important players for this tournament. Toni Kroos has confirmed himself that he won't be participating, and Timo Werner is out because of a recent ankle injury he suffered. Marco Reus is also a doubt and probably won't be 100% fit, but there is a chance he can still make the roster. The one positive thing about the Germany national team right now is that all their Bayern Munich players are performing very well. Like Leroy Sané, Serge Gnabry, and Jamal Musiala are all tearing it up, so this helps Germany's chances a lot. Now we got Japan next, and I'm going to be rooting for them to do well. And yes, I know, they slapped up my country 2-0, but bruh, I love Japan, I love anime, I want to go to Tokyo so bad, so I'm going to be rooting for them. Going back to topic though, Japan have a lot of serious talent. For example, they have the likes of Mitoma, Takefusa Kubo, Minamino, Tomiyasu, etc. However, Japan did leave one of the greatest talents out of their squad in my opinion, Kyogo Furuhashi. That's a pretty strange decision in my eyes. Regardless, Japan are a very talented team and they could pull off an upset in the World Cup. So who's going through in this group? Well, in last place, I have to put Costa Rica. I don't think their new generation is going to help them out a lot, and I think they're just out of their depth in this group. Now for 3rd place, I sadly have to go for Japan. I'm really hoping they prove me wrong and pull off an upset, but I just don't think it's going to happen, sadly. Their lack of a real number 9 is going to really hurt them for sure. Also, drawing Ecuador 0-0 and losing to Tunisia 3-0 aren't good signs to have when you have to take on Spain and Germany, so there's that. Now for second place, I actually have Germany. Germany are struggling right now for sure, but when their top talents like Leroy Sané and Jamal Musiala are balling out, I'm sure they can carry Germany all the way to the round of 16 at least. And lastly, we got Spain, who I think is going to top the group. I think the talent in their squad is too good, even though they have a real number 9 problem as well, just like Japan. But they still have so much world-class talent around the pitch, so there's no way I don't think they're not going to top the group. Now moving on to Group F, we got Belgium, Canada, Morocco, and Croatia. Now for Belgium, they're in pretty decent form and they still have some really good players. For example, they got the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, who should be fit for the World Cup, Eden Hazard, Yannick Carrasco, Jeremy Doku, etc. The weakness though for me has to be their center backs. Toby Alderweireld and Vertonghen are old now and Belgium is still relying on those two to be the center backs. This is also Belgium's last chance to try to win a trophy with their golden generation. If they don't win this World Cup, Belgium's golden generation would have won nothing. Still, a third place medal in the 2018 World Cup is still a historic achievement in my opinion, but I don't think they're ever going to be this close to winning a World Cup ever again. Moving on to Canada, they actually topped the standings in CONCACAF World Cup qualifying and beat the likes of Mexico and USA during the qualification process. Now, in preparing for the World Cup, Canada has gone through a lot of problems. They had their friendlies against Panama and Iran cancelled in June, and then in the most recent game, they lost to Uruguay 2-0. No shame though, Uruguay is a good team, but it just doesn't seem like Canada has gotten the best preparation for this World Cup. Still though, Canada have 2 world-class talents on their team with the likes of Jonathan David and of course Alphonso Davies. Keep an eye on Fonzie this tournament though, because after his ex Jordan posted a picture on Instagram with their new boyfriend, I think Fonzie's about to go menace mode. Next, we got Morocco, who has gotten a new coach for this World Cup, and this means players that were previously exiled, like Hakim Ziyech and Mazraoui, are back with the national team. This is a great thing for Morocco because not selecting some of your best players over petty beef is so stupid in my opinion. Now, Morocco did not perform well in the last World Cup, and I know they're hoping they can change it around for this one. Now, lastly, we got Croatia, who are the World Cup finalists in 2018. Now, like I said earlier, Croatia topped a difficult Nations League group, and even though old important players like Rakitic and Subasic have retired from their national team, they still have Luka Modric captaining the side with some good young talent coming through, like Guardiola being one of the many exciting Croatian talents. And also, Croatia have not lost in the past 5 games either, so they're coming in hot for this World Cup. And I think this good form will help them out tremendously. So who's going through from this group? Well, last place I got Morocco. Now I know Ziyech is back and everything, but I don't see the side doing better than any of the other sides in the group. It's just simple as that. Also, the fact that I think Alphonso Davies is going to go menace mode is the reason why I think Canada will finish above Morocco in 3rd place. Now in 2nd place, I'm going to put Belgium. Now I know Belgium has some players in great form, like for example they have Kevin De Bruyne, but I think most of the Belgian players are out of their prime now, and I think winning this World Cup is pretty unachievable for them. Now for 1st place, I got Croatia because they have a good mix of young talent mixed with their old talent like Modric and Perisic, and I think this will definitely help them top the group. Now for Group G, we got Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon. This is almost the same exact group from the group in the 2018 World Cup, except this time Cameroon is replacing Costa Rica. Anyways, let's start off with Brazil, who are the #1 national team in the world according to the FIFA rankings. And I don't even blame FIFA for ranking Brazil this high because Brazil are stacked, bruh. All the way from the goalkeepers to the star attackers, Brazil have it all. They did end up lose to Argentina in the Copa America final, but their recent form is simply outrageous, with them beating the likes of Tunisia, Ghana, Japan, and South Korea. They also topped the CONMEBOL qualifying easily when Argentina are also in red hot form as well. Neymar is also balling out this season and is getting real hot before the World Cup, so maybe it's finally his time to complete his dreams of winning the competition. Before we go on about that, let's talk about Serbia. And in my opinion, they're pretty underrated. Now Serbia's recent form has been pretty good as well. They topped their Nations League group, and despite being in League B, their group was pretty tough with the likes of Norway and Sweden in it. Additionally, they topped the World Cup qualifying group with Portugal in it, gaining automatic qualification to the World Cup. Serbia also have a good squad with the likes of Milinkovic, Savic, and Mitrovic, who are old but gold players. And of course, they have young and talented striker Vlahovic. And he seems to be performing decently well despite being in a very bad Juventus team right now. Serbia could be an underdog in this World Cup, and they do have the quality to go low-key far. Let's talk about Switzerland now. Now, although they did very well in the Euros beating France, it did somewhat well in the Nations League, I don't really rate them that highly anymore. I know Jacques is enjoying a very good season, but his counterpart Shaqiri isn't. He went to the MLS to play for the Chicago Fire, and Fire did not make the playoffs, so Shaqiri has not played a real football game in a minute, which is bad for Switzerland. There's also not much hype talent coming out of Switzerland as well, so it's not really looking good for them. Now to Cameroon, yeah, they're not gonna do anything, bruh. Cameroon literally lost to South Korea, and then they lost to Uzbekistan in the most recent window. Like, bruh, Uzbekistan? I can't even name one player from that national team. So yeah, off the bat, I'm gonna say Cameroon is getting last place. I think they're just gonna enjoy the vibes of being in the World Cup. Now 3rd place, I'm gonna have to put Switzerland. I think Shaqiri not being in form is really gonna hurt Switzerland's chances despite Xhaka playing exceptionally well. Then 2nd place, I'm gonna have to put Serbia. I think Serbia is gonna have a great tournament, but there's no way I can see them topping the group when Brazil are in it. Brazil are just way too stacked. They're literally the #1 national team in the world, so I'm gonna have to say they're topping the group. On to the last group before we move on to the knockout stages. We got Group H, which consists of Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and South Korea. Now starting out with Portugal, their form has been pretty decent. It's just been a mixed bag of wins, draws, and losses. They're not in the worst form, but they're not in the best either. Portugal's squad though is very talented with the likes of Grimaldo, Cancelo, João Felix, Neves, Cristiano Ronaldo, etc. Speaking of Ronaldo though, it's not going well for him. He's basically a bench warmer for Manchester United and isn't playing all that much for Ten Hag. Therefore, Ronaldo's not going to be in the hottest form going into the tournament. Additionally, Diogo Jota, one of Portugal's best players, is out with an injury and he won't be playing in the World Cup either, which is a huge blow. And Portugal's manager isn't all that either. I don't really rate them that highly. It's not looking good for Portugal, but Ronaldo has that clutch factor about him, so never count them out. Now let's move on to Ghana. Respectfully, Ghana should have never made the World Cup. They got extremely lucky with that away goal against Nigeria, which brought them to the tournament in my opinion. Ghana's recent form has not been that great either because they lost to the likes of Brazil 3-0 and got slapped up by Japan in June 4-1. However, recently Ghana have recruited some very good players for the national team. They got the likes of Iñaki Williams, Tariq Lamptey, and Salisu, who are all good players to add to the roster. However, I don't know if adding random good players to your team is going to help the team chemistry at all. It's a big risk from Ghana for doing this. Now we go to Uruguay, whose recent form has been pretty decent. They lost to Iran in a friendly, but did end up beating Canada, which is good for team morale. They also have most of their players fit for the tournament, like Luis Suarez, Darwin Nunez, and of course their best player Valverde is fit too, who has been absolutely killing it for Real Madrid recently. He's gonna put Uruguay on his back this tournament, trust. And now we move on to South Korea. Now I know Heung-min Son is getting a surgery for something related to his eye, but I personally believe he'll still be playing in the World Cup despite the surgery. Now excluding Heung-min Son, South Korea still have a very good squad. They have the likes of Kim Min-jae, Hwang Hee-chan, Lee Kang-in, etc. However, they drew to Costa Rica and lost to Japan in recent history, so maybe the World Cup will low-key be troublesome. Their jerseys are heat though, so they finna look fresh regardless of how they do. Anyways, who do I think is going through from this group? Well, I'm gonna say Ghana is gonna get last place. I'm just not convinced by them, to be honest, and I don't think adding random good players to your squad is gonna help out that much. Now third place for this group is really difficult because I think any of these three countries are capable of making it to the round of 16. However, I'm gonna play it safe and I think the two favorites from this group are gonna go through, and that means South Korea are finishing third place. Now due to Portugal not being in great form and the fact that their GOAT isn't playing much, I'm gonna have to say they're getting second place. I think they're gonna clutch up and go through, but I don't think they're gonna top it because I think Uruguay is gonna top the group instead, and this is because a lot of Uruguayans are playing really well for the clubs right now, so it's hard for me to say that they're not gonna finish #1. Now before we move on to my knockout stage predictions, let me give you a quick recap of who I said is gonna go through for the group stages. Now for Group A, I said Senegal will get second and said that Netherlands will get first place. Group B, I said England will get second and Iran will get first. Group C, I got Mexico at second place and Argentina topping the group. Group D, I got Tunisia getting second and Denmark getting first. Group E, I got Germany in second and Spain in first. Group F, I got Belgium in second place and Croatia being first. For Group G, I said Serbia is going to be second and Brazil is going to be first. And then lastly for Group H, I said Portugal is going to be second place while Uruguay gets first. Now for the round of 16 games, we got the likes of Netherlands versus England, Argentina versus Tunisia, Iran versus Senegal, Denmark versus Mexico, Spain versus Belgium, Brazil versus Portugal, Croatia versus Germany, and Uruguay versus Serbia. Let's start off with the first match, which is Netherlands versus England. To be honest, for the rest of the video, I'm going to go with how I feel and what's going to happen instead of looking at statistics and advanced analytics, since it's the knockout stages and anything can happen. And in this game, I think it's going to be Gareth Southgate's last game in charge for England. This is obviously because I think the Netherlands are going to win. I think Netherlands' great defense is going to be too good for England to break down, and with Harry Kane being known to disappear in big games for England, I think the exact same thing will happen. So I got Netherlands winning this game 1-0 and Memphis Depay is going to get the solo goal. Now Argentina versus Tunisia is next, and let me speed this one up for y'all. Argentina is taking the big dub in this game, and they'll probably win it 3-0 with Lionel Messi bagging a brace. Now Iran versus Senegal is next, and this is going to be a really interesting game. In fact, I think both of these teams are pretty evenly matched. In fact, these two countries literally face each other in September and they drew 1-1. So yeah, they are pretty even. I also think that this game will be a draw, meaning 2-2, and they will go to penalties, where Senegal, having the experience for beating Egypt in 2 penalty shootouts recently, will beat Iran in a soul-crushing defeat for them on pens, 5-4. Denmark versus Mexico is next up, and this will be a pretty decent chance for Mexico to break their 5th game curse. I mean, it's better than facing the likes of Brazil like they had to do in the 2018 World Cup. However, Denmark might not look the best on paper, but they've been a really good team for the past couple of years. And with Eriksen being back in the picture for them too, it's going to be hard to stop the European dark horses. That's why I think the 5th game curse is still going to exist for Mexico, and I think Denmark is winning this game 2-1. Spain versus Belgium is next, and this is going to be a really interesting game. Both really solid European countries are going through a weird transitional phase. However, due to the fact that Spain's younger generation is much brighter than Belgium's, I'm gonna have to say that Spain is gonna win this game. That's why I'm saying Spain is winning it 3-1 and Pedro will be the MVP in this match. Brazil versus Portugal is here, and I'm sorry, but it's the end for Ronaldo. I think Portugal have a lot of quality on paper, but if you actually watch them play, they're not really living up to their potential. Especially with Ronaldo getting older and not being able to put the country on his back, it's gonna be hard for them to go really far, especially when they have to beat Brazil. That's why I think Brazil is gonna destroy Portugal in this game 3-0, and I think Vinicius, Neymar, and Rodrigo are bagging the goals. Croatia versus Germany is the following game, and this is gonna be a really tough one to predict. Like I said, Croatia are pretty underrated this year, and they have a good mix of old and young talent. Plus, they got that World Cup 2018 final experience. However, Germany have a clutch factor about them, and they have a lot of good players that are playing well right now, like Sané and Musiala. That's why I think this game is gonna be 1-1 and it's gonna go to extra time. And that's when I think Musiala will break the deadlock and win the game for Germany 2-1. Heartbreak for Croatia, but this is the way the cookie crumbles. Last but not least, in the round 16 games, we got Uruguay versus Serbia. Now, in my opinion, this is a 50-50 game. Both teams have old experienced players and also a good amount of young talent coming through, like Valverde and Vlahovic to name a couple. Hence why I think this game will be tight, but I think Uruguay is gonna get a late winner in add time thanks to Federico Valverde. He's gonna be clutch. Now we're going to the quarterfinals where the matches are gonna be Netherlands versus Argentina, Spain versus Brazil, Senegal versus Denmark, and Germany versus Uruguay. Now, Netherlands versus Argentina is gonna be a World Cup 2014 semifinal rematch where Argentina won that game on pens. I don't think this game is gonna go to pens, but I think Argentina is gonna win this game though. Argentina are just on fire at the moment, and with Messi looking like a man on a mission this season, I think Argentina is gonna win this game 1-0 with Lautaro Martinez back in the goal and Messi is gonna get the assist. Now next up we got Spain versus Brazil, which is gonna be a really interesting game because both of these national teams are really good. However, like I said numerous times in this video, Brazil are just too stacked. Now Spain have their share of young world-class talent like Pedri and Javi, but Brazil have a lot of world-class talent still, with the likes of Neymar, Vinicius, Bruno Guimaraes, Casemiro, Thiago Silva, etc. That's why I got Brazil winning this game 2-1, and I think Neymar is gonna get an MVP performance for this game. Now we got Senegal versus Denmark, the battle of the dark horses. Senegal is probably the best team in Africa right now and can be the first team in Africa to qualify for the World Cup semifinals. They definitely have the talent too, with the likes of Sadio Mane being the talisman. However, Denmark are just a really good team and they know how to work together really well. That's why I think this game will go to extra time 0-0, but I think in extra time, Denmark will score 2 goals and then Sadio Mane will get a consolation goal at the end. Heartbreak for the Senegalese, but it's just the way it is. Now last up is Germany versus Uruguay. I don't really know what to say about this match, but I already have one underdog in the semifinals, and I think that's good enough for me. That's why I think Germany is going to win this game 4-2 in an absolute thriller, but they'll get the job done and go to the semifinals. Now the semifinals are set, and it's going to be Argentina versus Brazil and Denmark versus Germany. Now Argentina versus Brazil is going to be one of the craziest semifinals ever. They're bitter rivals in CONMEBOL, and they've been going neck and neck with each other these past few years. They could not beat each other in World Cup qualifying, while Argentina beat Brazil in the finals of the most recent Copa America, while Brazil won the previous edition after beating Argentina in the semifinals. Now this is also the last chance for Messi or Ronaldo to win the World Cup, so one of their hearts will break because of the other person. However, there is one important fun fact that I know. Whatever country FIFA has put #1 in their standings right before the World Cup has never gone on to win it. And also, even though I low-key think Brazil's gonna win the World Cup, I really want Messi to win it all, just so he can certify his GOAT status. So because of my bias and the fact that Argentina are a really good team, I think they're gonna win this semifinal 3-2 and Messi will prevail. Now Denmark versus Germany is a semifinal I really wasn't expecting to see. Now if you've been watching my channel, you would know I love underdog stories. Like in 2018, I love the fact that Croatia was in the 2018 final because nobody expected it and they were the underdogs. It's also kind of the same way how I feel about Denmark right now. Also, I don't really know how Germany managed to finesse their way all the way to the semifinals in my predictions. I didn't even rate them that high because of their poor form. That's why with the huge upset, I got Denmark going to the World Cup final after beating Germany in extra time 2-1. I'm so crazy, bruh. Now it's time for the World Cup final. Argentina versus Denmark. This was a final that nobody was probably expecting when you clicked on this video, but this is where my predictions led me to. Can Messi finally win the World Cup, or will Denmark, the underdogs, the dark horses, prevail and win it all? This is a hard pick for me because I love underdog stories, but Messi winning the World Cup would mean he has won it all. And that's why I'm gonna say Messi and Argentina will win the World Cup. It's gonna be a thrilling 3-1 game with Messi bagging a goal and also getting 2 assists. And with this, Messi would have finally won the World Cup and his GOAT status would finally be undisputable. Sorry, Ronaldo fans. Anyways, let me know down in the comments whether you agree with my World Cup predictions or disagree, which you probably do. You probably don't agree with anything I said. As always, remember to subscribe to the channel and also hit the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I drop a banger video. Also leave a like. Let's try reaching 500 likes this video. And also follow my Twitter at Nabhuto. I would just seriously appreciate it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace!